In the deepest folds of the sleeping mountains, where ancient peaks slumbered beneath caps of eternal snow, lay a valley untouched by the hurried breath of the world. This was Whisperwood Valley, a place of perpetual twilight and gentle hums, where the very air seemed to hold secrets. Here, the trees were not mere timber, but sentient elders, their colossal trunks draped in emerald moss, their branches reaching like gnarled hands towards a sky that perpetually glowed with the softest pearlescent light, as if spun from moonbeams and stardust. A silver river, fed by glacial tears, wound through the valley, murmuring lullabies to the smooth river stones. Cottages, built from the rich, dark wood of fallen trees, and roofed with vibrant green moss, nestled into the landscape as if they had grown there themselves. Smoke curled lazily from their chimneys, carrying the scent of hearth fires and baking bread into the cool, quiet air. The people of Whisperwood were much like their valley, quiet, observant, and deeply attuned to the rhythms of the earth. They moved with a soft tread, spoke in hushed tones, and found wisdom in the rustle of leaves and the song of the river. They were keepers of old ways, their lives woven into the fabric of the forest, their days marked by the slow turning of seasons and the gentle glow of the sky. Among them lived a girl named Lyra. She was perhaps 12 years old, with eyes the color of shadowed forest pools and hair like spun moonlight. Lyra was quieter than most, even for Whisperwood, but her stillness was not emptiness. It was a listening. From the moment she could remember, Lyra had heard things others didn't. A faint ethereal hum beneath the world's surface, a melody without instruments, a whisper that wasn't wind. She called it, simply, the whispering. Most days, the whispering was a gentle undertone, a soothing vibration that resonated in her bones, a constant companion that filled the quiet spaces in her mind. It was like the murmur of a distant stream, or the soft buzz of a hidden bee. It made the world feel alive, connected, breathing with an unseen grace. Lyra's home was a small cozy cottage nestled by the bend of the river, its windows framed with climbing vines bearing tiny, bell-shaped flowers that chimed faintly in the breeze. Inside, the air was always warm, smelling of dried herbs and old parchment. Her grandmother, Elara, lived there too. Elara was a woman of deep wrinkles and even deeper wisdom, her hands gnarled from a lifetime of tending herbs and mending nets, her eyes sparkling with the light of countless untold stories. She was the one who understood Lyra best, though even Elara couldn't truly hear the whispering in the same way. "You have the ears of the old ones, child," Elara would say, stroking Lyra's moonlit hair as they sat by the hearth. "The forest speaks to you." But lately, the whispering had changed. It was no longer just an undertone. It had begun to swell, to gain a gentle urgency, like a symphony building towards an unknown crescendo. It was clearer now, more resonant, a chorus of ancient voices woven with the rustling of countless leaves, a deep earth psalm pulsing beneath her feet, the shimmer of starlight made audible. It felt as if the entire valley was holding its breath, waiting for something magnificent and profound. It started subtly, a more insistent hum during her morning chores. As Lyra gathered dew-kissed berries from the bushes by the riverbank, the whispering would pulse, guiding her hand to the ripest fruit, its rhythm mirroring the beat of her own heart. When she knelt in their small garden, coaxing the stubborn carrots from the rich, dark soil, the whispering would rise and fall, a gentle encouragement that made the earth feel alive beneath her fingertips. One afternoon, while Lyra was helping Elara sort dried lavender, she tried to explain the change. "Grandmother," she began, her voice soft, the whispering. "It's louder. It feels like it wants me to listen harder." Elara paused, her delicate fingers stilling amidst the fragrant purple blooms. She looked at Lyra, her ancient eyes searching. "Louder, you say? What does it sound like to you now, little moonbeam?" Lyra struggled for words. How to describe a sound that was also a feeling, a presence, a stream of knowledge? "It's like the trees are singing, not just with their leaves, but from their very roots. And the river, it's not just water, it's telling stories. And the sky, the light, it hums with a deep, quiet power. It's all of it, grandmother, woven together. And it's calling." Elara nodded slowly, a faraway look in her eyes. "The old legends speak of a time when the heartwood itself would sing, when the veil between our world and the spirit world was thin as mist. It was called the Great Song, a living magic that nourished all of Whisperwood." She paused, a faint wrinkle appearing between her brows. Perhaps you are hearing an echo, child, or perhaps something more. The thought sent a ripple of wonder through Lyra. An echo? Or something more? The idea filled her with a thrilling mixture of curiosity and a comfortable kind of awe. The whispering wasn't menacing. It was inviting, like a lullaby calling her home, but to a home she hadn't yet discovered. Later that day, unable to ignore the persistent gentle pull, Lyra slipped away from the cottage. She carried nothing but her quiet determination and the ever-growing melody in her heart. Her usual path took her along the familiar edges of the forest, where the ancient trees stood like benevolent sentinels. Here, the whispering was already stronger, a clear, resonant hum that seemed to emanate from the very air itself. She paused by a cluster of starblossom flowers, their petals unfurling in iridescent hues, glowing with an inner light that pulsed in time with the whispering. A small, rust-colored deer, usually skittish, stood perfectly still beside them, its head tilted, ears twitching, listening intently to something Lyra could almost articulate, but knew no one else could hear. The deer met Lyra's gaze with wide, intelligent eyes, a shared understanding passing between them, before it turned and melted silently into the deeper woods. The whispering seemed to beckon her forward, past the usual boundaries where the villagers gathered firewood or foraged for mushrooms. It wasn't a demanding call, but a soft, insistent invitation, like a hand gently laid on her back, urging her on. Lyra took a deep breath, the scent of damp earth and ancient pine filling her lungs, and stepped into the deeper woods. Here, the forest changed. The trees grew taller, their canopies so dense that only slivers of the pearlescent sky could pierce through, creating shifting patterns of light and shadow on the moss-covered ground. The air grew cooler, imbued with a deep, earthy fragrance that spoke of centuries of growth and decay. Moss-covered stones, sculpted by time into strange, sometimes animalistic forms, lined her path. The trunks of the trees were wider here, some so immense that Lyra could not have circled them with 10 of her friends holding hands. Their bark was rough and textured, like the faces of old men, furrowed with age and untold stories. The sounds of the forest became more vivid, the gentle drip of water from leaves, the distant call of a wood-singer bird, the soft scurry of unseen creatures. Yet above and beneath them all, the whispering reigned supreme, a clear, luminous pathfinder. It wasn't a sound that hurt her ears. It was a sound that resonated in her soul, vibrating through her very cells, guiding her deeper and deeper. She walked for what felt like hours, though the timeless quality of the valley made it hard to tell. Her feet, usually light, felt weighted by the profound magic that saturated the air. Finally, the trees began to thin slightly, opening into a grander, more ancient part of the forest, a place Lyra had only heard whispered about in Alara's stories, the Heartwood Grove. The grove was unlike any other place in Whisperwood. It felt like a cathedral built by nature itself, vast and silent, filled with an immense sense of peace and power. The trees here were truly ancient, their branches so intertwined they formed a living ceiling, casting the clearing in a perpetual hallowed glow. The ground was covered in a carpet of luminous moss that seemed to pulse with a faint inner light. In the very center of the Heartwood Grove stood a colossal tree, larger and older than any Lyra had ever seen. Its trunk was so wide it must have taken root before the mountains themselves had fully settled, before the river had carved its winding path. This was the Whisper Oak, the mother tree, the heart of the valley. Its bark shimmered with faint internal light, like a million tiny stars trapped beneath its ancient skin. Its branches, draped with silvery lichen, reached towards the unseen sky, their tips seeming to brush against the very fabric of the starlight. As Lyra approached the Whisper Oak, the whispering intensified, becoming almost a tangible presence. It was no longer just a sound, but a feeling, a deep resonance that vibrated through her bones, a gentle stream of understanding flowing into her mind. It felt like the air itself was singing, not with words but with pure distilled essence. At the base of the Whisper Oak, nestled amongst its roots, Lyra saw it. Not a physical object, but a pool of shimmering light, about the size of a small pond. It reflected the pearlescent sky above, but within its depths, swirling patterns of colors and light danced, like liquid starlight. It pulsed with a soft ethereal glow, illuminating the ancient roots around it. It felt like a window, or perhaps a mirror, to something profound and unknowable. Lyra took a cautious step closer, her heart thrumming in time with the intensified whispering. The air around the pool felt thick with magic, tingling on her skin. She reached out a hesitant hand, drawn by an irresistible curiosity. As her fingertips grazed the edge of the shimmering light, a profound sensation washed over her, a feeling of ancient memory, of deep peace, and a subtle, almost imperceptible sadness. The pool of light rippled, and from its center, a single luminous spark detached itself. It wasn't a solid thing, but a condensed point of light, pulsating with a gentle inner radiance. It floated slowly towards Lyra, hovering directly before her eyes, no bigger than a firefly. As the spark hung in the air, the whispering became clearer, not as words, but as images and emotions that flowed directly into her mind, bypassing her ears entirely. It was a fleeting vision, a kaleidoscope of colors and sensations. An image of the whisper oak, once even grander, its branches reaching higher, its light stronger. Then a subtle shift, a faint dimming, like a shadow passing over the sun. A sense of something missing, a fragment of an ancient melody lost to time. And finally, a feeling of gentle urgency, an invitation to seek, to remember, to restore. It wasn't a warning of danger, but a quiet call to balance, a subtle imbalance within the valley's deep, slumbering magic. The spark pulsed one last time, imparting a final lingering feeling of ancient knowledge, then gently dissolved into the air, leaving behind only the scent of ozone and starlight. Lyra stood there, breathless, her hand still outstretched. The whispering, though still present, had softened, becoming a reassuring hum once more. She looked from the spot where the spark had vanished to the immense silent presence of the whisper oak, then back towards the path that led home. She felt changed, marked by a profound moment of connection, a sudden deeper understanding of the valley's living heart. The whispering was not just a sound, it was a message, a story waiting to be unfolded, and she, Lyra, had just heard its first, most sacred word. And she knew with a certainty that settled deep in her soul, that her journey into the heart of Whisperwood had only just begun. Her small feet, usually light and quick, felt weighted with the stillness of the forest as she retraced her steps. The path home, once a familiar ribbon of dappled light and shadow, now seemed to pulse with a subtle, vibrant energy she had never noticed before. Every rustle of leaves was a hushed secret, every glint of sunlight through the canopy a knowing wink. The air itself hummed with a quiet understanding, as if the entire Whisperwood held its breath, waiting for her to process the momentous shift within her. Lyra walked in a dreamlike state, her mind replaying the moments beneath the whisper oak, the ancient bark, rough yet comforting beneath her palm. The surge of power, not violent, but a gentle immense current that flowed through her, awakening something dormant. The symphony of whispers, clear and resonant, a language of wind and root and starlight. She couldn't articulate what she had heard, not in human words, but she felt its truth deep in her bones. It was a promise, a memory, a call. By the time the familiar scent of wood smoke and wild thyme from her own cottage reached her, the sun had begun its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of soft rose and deep amethyst. Her mother, Elara, was tending to the evening meal, the warm glow of the hearth fire a beacon against the deepening twilight. Lyra slipped through the cottage door, the world outside still vibrating with its newfound magic, the world inside a haven of comforting routine. "There you are, little one," Elara said, her voice a soothing murmur as she stirred a pot of lentil stew. "The sun nearly caught you in its sleep. Did you find those twilight berries you were looking for?" Lyra held out her small basket. It was indeed filled with the deep purple berries, their bloom like powdered moonlight. She had picked them almost without realizing, her hands moving instinctively, while her mind soared. But her mother's gaze, usually so gentle and unseeing of the deeper world, seemed to linger on Lyra's face. "Your eyes," Elara mused, a faint frown creasing her brow. "They sparkle like you've seen the first star of evening, Lyra. What wonders did Whisperwood show you today?" Lyra's heart fluttered. Could her mother see it? The mark of the oak? The echo of the whispers? She shook her head, a shy smile playing on her lips. "Just the quiet, Mama, and the berries were very ripe." She offered her mother a berry, and Elara accepted it, her expression thoughtful. Lyra knew she couldn't explain, not yet. How could she describe a language without words, a connection beyond touch? That night, as Lyra lay in her small bed, the window opened to the cool night air. The whispering came again. It wasn't the overwhelming surge she had experienced at the oak, but a gentle, pervasive hum carried on the breeze that rustled the leaves of the ancient apple tree outside her window. It wove itself into her dreams, not as distinct messages, but as feelings. Images of winding roots delving deep into the earth, shimmering threads of light connecting every living thing. The distant, mournful cry of an unseen creature, and a growing sense of urgency, like a quiet drumbeat beneath the world. Days turned into a week, and the valley for Lyra was never the same. The whispering became her constant companion. It was in the babbling brook that sang tales of distant mountains, in the rustle of the meadow grasses that spoke of the wind's travels, in the creak of the old wooden floorboards that murmured the history of her home. She found herself understanding the moods of the animals. The squirrel's agitated chatter wasn't just noise, but a warning. The deer's peaceful grazing was a deep contentment. She knew when a storm was brewing hours before the clouds gathered, feeling the shift in the earth's breath. Her family noticed her quiet contemplation, her newfound patience, her tendency to wander off into the woods for hours, only to return with a serene, knowing smile. Her father, a sturdy man of the earth who worked his small plot of land with loving dedication, would often find her sitting by the edge of the field, simply listening. He'd ruffle her hair and say, "Lost in thought again, my little dreamer. What secrets do the wildflowers tell you?" Lyra would only smile, her heart full. One crisp morning, Lyra awoke with a powerful sense of direction. The whispering was no longer a gentle hum, but a clear, insistent pull, like an invisible thread tugging her eastward, deeper into Whisperwood than she had ever dared to venture before. It was a familiar feeling, this intuitive knowing, but magnified. It wasn't towards the Whisper Oak this time, but beyond it, to a part of the forest rumored to be ancient, even by the valley's standards, the Sunken Glade. The Sunken Glade was a place spoken of in hushed tones by the elders, a place where the trees grew so thick their branches intertwined to form an eternal twilight, where the ground sloped sharply into a bowl-shaped depression, and where, it was said, time itself moved differently. Few went there, fearing the deep shadows and the strange, unsettling quiet that permeated the air. Lyra packed a small satchel with dried fruit, a chunk of cheese, and a flask of water. She told her mother she was going to gather herbs for tea, a plausible excuse. Elara, engrossed in kneading dough for bread, gave her a distracted nod. Lyra kissed her cheek, then slipped out, her heart thrumming with a mixture of apprehension and exhilarating purpose. The journey was unlike any she had taken. The familiar path gave way to fainter trails, then to no trail at all. The trees grew taller, their trunks thicker, their bark moss-encrusted and ancient. The light grew dimmer, filtering through layers of emerald leaves like spilled jewels. The air became cooler, denser, carrying the scent of damp earth and something else, something metallic and sweet, like old magic. The whispering guided her, a subtle nudge here, a gentle pull there. She found herself stepping over gnarled roots that resembled sleeping serpents, ducking under low-hanging branches heavy with untold years. The forest was alive around her, a symphony of rustles and chirps and distant calls, but beneath it all, the persistent, guiding whisper, now almost a melodic chant, drew her onward. After what felt like hours, though the light barely seemed to change, the ground began to slope downwards. The trees here were truly immense, their canopies so dense that only slivers of the sky were visible, like broken mirrors. The air grew still, heavy, and the sounds of the forest seemed to recede, replaced by a profound, echoing silence. This was the threshold of the Sunken Glade. Lyra took a deep breath, pushing aside a curtain of trailing ivy. She stepped into a world bathed in an ethereal, greenish glow. The glade was indeed a vast, circular depression, the ground carpeted with a thick, velvety moss that seemed to absorb all sound. Ancient trees, unlike any she had ever seen, ringed the periphery, their branches reaching inwards, their leaves a deep, almost black green. In the very center of the glade, where the light was dimmest, stood a stone structure. It was not a building, nor a ruin in the conventional sense. It was a ring of standing stones, tall and weathered, their surfaces etched with symbols Lyra couldn't decipher, but which resonated with an ancient power. They were dark, almost black, and seemed to hum with a low, resonant frequency that Lyra could feel in her teeth. Moss grew in patches on their rough surfaces, and small phosphorescent fungi glowed faintly at their base, casting a ghostly light. And nestled within the circle of stones, almost completely obscured by the shadows and the encroaching moss, was a small, still pool of water. It didn't ripple, didn't reflect, but simply lay there, dark and fathomless, like an eye gazing into another world. The whispering which had guided her so far now coalesced around this pool, a concentrated murmur of untold stories. As Lyra approached the pool, her steps silent on the moss, she noticed something else. A faint, silvery glow emanated from the water's depths. Leaning closer, she saw it, a small, intricately carved wooden box, resting on the bottom of the pool, perfectly preserved. It seemed to be made of a dark, polished wood, perhaps ebony, and was inlaid with shimmering mother-of-pearl and patterns that echoed the symbols on the standing stones. A strange warmth spread through Lyra's chest. This was what the whispering had led her to. This was the next word in the ancient story. Without hesitation, she knelt, reaching her hand into the cold, clear water. As her fingertips brushed against the box, a jolt, not of electricity, but of pure, crystalline memory, shot through her arm. Images flashed in her mind, figures cloaked in gray, moving with quiet reverence. Hands tracing symbols on stone. A tree, impossibly ancient, shedding leaves of pure light. She carefully lifted the box from the pool. It was heavier than it looked, and surprisingly dry, as if the water had simply been a protective sheath. The wood was smooth and cool beneath her fingers, almost alive. She ran her thumb over the mother-of-pearl inlay, feeling the subtle ridges and curves. The whispering intensified, a chorus of hushed voices encouraging her. How to open it? There was no visible latch, no clasp. She turned it over in her hands, searching. Then as she held it, the box seemed to grow warm in her palms. One of the inlaid symbols, a stylized leaf with 3 points, began to glow faintly. Lyra, guided by instinct, pressed her thumb gently onto the glowing leaf. With a soft click that resonated in the profound silence of the glade, the lid of the box sprang open. Inside, nestled on a bed of what looked like dried luminous moss, was not a treasure of gold or jewels, but a single, shimmering feather. It was iridescent, shifting between shades of silver, sapphire, and emerald with every flicker of the faint light. It was impossibly delicate, yet seemed to pulse with a quiet power. And woven into its shaft, almost invisible until Lyra looked closely, was a single, impossibly fine strand of what looked like moonlight spun into thread. As she carefully lifted the feather, another memory, clearer this time, bloomed in her mind. She saw a creature of magnificent beauty, soaring through a starlit sky, its wings beating with silent grace. It was a bird, yes, but unlike any she had ever seen, larger than an eagle, with plumage that seemed to capture and hold the light of the moon. Its eyes, she saw in the fleeting vision, were ancient and wise, the color of twilight. The whispering now seemed to focus on the feather itself, a soft, encouraging murmur that resonated with the memory of the majestic bird. Lyra felt a profound sense of connection to it, as if a piece of its silent wisdom had been entrusted to her. This was not just a feather, it was a key, a token, a sign. As she held the feather, the light in the sunken glade seemed to brighten, just a fraction. The phosphorescent fungi at the base of the standing stones pulsed with a stronger glow. The silent pool behind her seemed to shimmer with new life. A new voice, distinct from the general murmur of the whispering, entered her mind. It was soft, melodic, yet ancient, like the sigh of the wind through mountains. You have found the first token, young listener. It resonated, not in words, but in pure understanding. The feather of the moon singer. It will guide you to those who remember, to those who guard the last remnants of the Eldrin's light. Lyra's breath caught. Eldrin? Now? She had never heard that word before. It felt old, impossibly old, like the glade itself. The shadow deepens, the voice continued, a note of sorrow entering its melody. It seeks to silence the song, to dim the light that binds our world. You are marked, Lyra, by the oak, by the whispering. You must seek the other tokens, gather the scattered threads of memory, and find the heartwood before it is consumed. Heartwood? Shadow? The urgency she had felt earlier now sharpened into a cold dread. The gentle magic of the valley suddenly seemed fragile, threatened. Lyra looked around the sunken glade, at the ancient stones, the still pool, the silent, watchful trees. The beauty was still there, but now it was tinged with a solemn weight. "The feather of the moon singer will show you the way to the keeper of stories," the voice concluded, fading into the general hum of the whispering. "Look to the highest peaks when the twin moons are full. Only then will the path reveal itself." Lyra clutched the feather gently, its subtle warmth a comfort in her palm. Twin moons. The valley only ever saw one moon. She looked up, trying to pierce the thick canopy, but saw only the dim, greenish light. She carefully placed the feather back in the box, closed the lid, and tucked the box securely into her satchel. The glade, though still beautiful, now felt like a place of grave purpose. She had come seeking a deeper understanding of the whispering, and she had found it, along with a burden of responsibility. Turning to leave, Lyra hesitated. She cast one last look at the standing stones, their ancient symbols now seemingly more vibrant, more meaningful. This was not just a place of magic, but a monument to a forgotten history, a silent guardian of secrets. She felt a profound gratitude for the guidance, and a growing determination to understand the message she had received. The journey back through Whisperwood was different. The forest, though still ancient and beautiful, now felt like a living map, each tree a marker, each stream a line, each hidden glade a significant point. The whispering was no longer just a sound, but a narrative unfolding around her, a constant stream of information that she was slowly learning to interpret. She began to notice subtle signs she had overlooked before. A strangely glowing patch of moss, a flower with petals the color of deep twilight, a pattern in the bark of an old tree that seemed to mimic the symbols on the standing stones. By the time she reached the edge of the familiar path leading home, the sun was once again setting, painting the sky in fiery oranges and gentle purples. The wood smoke from her cottage was a welcome sight, a grounding presence after her journey into the deeper mysteries. Her mother was waiting for her, a worried frown on her face. "Lyra, you're late. I was starting to worry." Lyra offered a reassuring smile. "I went a little further than I meant to, Mama. The herbs were growing in a new clearing." She held up a sprig of wild mint, a small token of her supposed foraging. Elara took the mint, her gaze once again lingering on Lyra's face. "You have a light about you, Lyra," she murmured, almost to herself. "A special kind of light." She didn't press further, though Lyra knew her mother sensed a change. That night, as Lyra lay in bed, the feather of the moon singer safe in its box beneath her pillow, she pondered the voice's words. The Eldrin, the Shadow, the Heartwood, the Keeper of Stories, and the Twin Moons. The valley, her home, was far more than she had ever imagined. A place steeped in ancient magic and forgotten history, now facing an unseen threat. She closed her eyes, and in the darkness behind her eyelids, she saw the moon singer, its magnificent wings beating a silent rhythm against a sky filled not with one, but two shimmering moons. A new resolve settled in her heart. She was Lyra, the listener, and the whispering had chosen her. Her journey, she knew, had only just truly begun. The path to the Keeper of Stories, and the secret of the Twin Moons, lay ahead, waiting for her to unravel the next sacred word. Her journey, she knew, had only just truly begun. The path to the Keeper of Stories, and the secret of the Twin Moons, lay ahead, waiting for her to unravel the next sacred word. Lyra opened her eyes, the afterglow of the moon singer's vision still shimmering behind her lids. The familiar scent of damp earth and night-blooming jasmine in her small village hut was a grounding anchor against the cosmic dance she had just witnessed. But the stillness was deceptive. The unseen threat, which had been a prickling unease, now felt like a cold breath on the back of her neck. She pushed aside her woven blanket, her bare feet silent on the packed earth floor. The whispering, once a soft murmur, now thrummed with a nervous energy, a chorus of tiny, unheard anxieties. It was no longer just the wind in the trees. It was the frantic rustle of leaves that knew a storm was coming, the hurried scurry of a mouse seeking deeper shelter, the distant, muffled cry of something lost. Stepping outside, Lyra felt the air grow heavy. The single familiar moon, Solara, usually a comforting pearl in the velvet sky, looked pale and strained tonight. And there, beside her, a spectral twin, Lunara, hung like a half-formed thought, a ghostly echo that pulsed with a faint, unsettling silver light. The sight sent a shiver down Lyra's spine, not of cold but of profound recognition. The vision was real. The twin moons were here, but their presence brought no peace. Instead, a peculiar silence had fallen over the village. The usual nocturnal symphony, the cricket's chirp, the distant hoot of an owl, the gentle hum of the dreamweavers tending their luminous cocoons, was absent. Only the whispering filled the void, a frantic, wordless plea for attention. Lyra's gaze swept across the sleeping huts, their windows dark. She listened, truly listened, with every fiber of her being. The threat wasn't a growling beast or a visible shadow. It was a subtle unraveling. The protective wards, woven into the very fabric of the village by generations of listeners, felt thin, like ancient cloth worn transparent. The gentle magic that nurtured their crops and kept their hearths warm seemed to flicker, struggling to hold its form. She saw it then, not with her eyes but with her listener's heart. A tendril of faint, grey mist, unlike any fog she had ever known, was seeping from the edges of the starstone circle in the village center. It wasn't cold, but it carried an emptiness, a subtle draining of color and sound. It was the absence of something, reaching out, slowly, inexorably, towards the heart of their home. "It's taking the sound," Lyra whispered, her own voice feeling strangely muted in the encroaching stillness. The whispering confirmed it, a rising tide of silent panic. The mist was not just absorbing sound, it was absorbing the very essence of the quiet magic that made things be. She knew she had to warn the elders, but a deeper knowing, spurred by the Moonsinger's recent message, told her it was too late for simple warnings. The village was already affected. The solution lay not in defense, but in understanding, in the unraveling of the sacred words. The whispering urged her towards the village's periphery, to the ancient grove, a place where the oldest trees stood like silent sentinels, their roots intertwined with forgotten magic. It was a place she usually avoided at night, for its secrets were deep and sometimes overwhelming. With a deep breath, Lyra moved. The grey mist seemed to recoil slightly from her path, as if her resolve, her connection to the whispering, held a faint warmth it could not extinguish. As she neared the edge of the village, she looked back. The twin moons, Solara and Lunara, now cast an eerie dual light over her home. Solara, the familiar, was dimming, while Lunara, the new, pulsed with a cold, almost hungry glow. The imbalance was clear. The ancient grove was a tangle of towering trees, their branches so thick with moss and ancient leaves that the twin moonlight barely pierced the canopy. The air here was different, thicker, humming with a suppressed power. The whispering in this place was less frantic, more a chorus of deep, resonant hums and slow, deliberate rustles. It felt like the forest itself was holding its breath, listening to hear. Suddenly, a shimmer of light, like dew caught on a spiderweb, appeared before her. It coalesced into a small, luminous orb, no bigger than her thumb. It hovered for a moment, then darted deeper into the grove. This was no ordinary light. It pulsed with a familiar rhythm, one Lyra had only ever heard in the deepest parts of the whispering. A guiding light. She followed. The ground beneath her feet was soft with generations of fallen leaves, and the roots of the ancient trees rose like gnarled knuckles from the earth. The air grew cooler, carrying the scent of damp earth and something else. Something metallic and ancient. The luminous orb led her deeper, past trees that seemed to gaze down with knowing eyes, past ancient stones half swallowed by the earth. The grove opened into a small clearing, bathed in the faint silvery light filtering through the dense canopy. In the center stood a single enormous tree, unlike any other. Its bark was not brown or gray, but a swirling tapestry of deep indigo and shimmering silver, like a captured piece of the night sky. Its leaves glowed with a soft internal luminescence, and from its lowest branch hung a single intricately carved wooden chime, silent and still. As Lyra stepped into the clearing, the luminous orb dissolved into 1,000 sparkling motes that danced around the indigo tree, then vanished. The whispering here was overwhelming, a symphony of ancient voices, not frantic, but profound. It was the sound of roots growing, sap rising, starlight filtering through leaves, the slow dance of time itself. And within that symphony, Lyra heard a new layer, a distinct, resonant hum, emanating from the chime. She reached out a tentative hand. As her fingers brushed the polished wood of the chime, a pulse of energy, warm and ancient, flowed into her. And then, a sound. Not a ringing, but a deep, resonant, high thrummer, like the lowest note of a colossal bell, vibrating not just in the air, but in her bones, in the earth beneath her feet, in the very core of her being. This was the sacred word. Not a word spoken, but a word felt, a frequency, a vibration. It resonated with the memory of the moon singer's beating wings, with the silent rhythm of the two moons. It was a word of balanci. As the vibration pulsed through her, Lyra's mind was flooded with images. She saw the twin moons, Solara and Lunara, in a dance of perfect harmony, their light intertwining, nourishing the world below. She saw the moonsinger, its magnificent wings not just propelling it, but creating ripples of this same resonant harmony through the cosmos. And then she saw the current imbalance, Solara dimming, Lunara growing cold, the harmony fracturing, casting a shadow of silence and emptiness over the world, the very mist she had witnessed in her village. The sacred word, she realized, was not just a key, but a call to restore balance. But how? "Keeper of stories," she whispered, her voice echoing strangely in the profound stillness of the grove. "Where are you?" The chime pulsed again, a gentler echo of the sacred word. The whispering surged, guiding her gaze to a small, almost invisible opening at the base of the indigo tree, hidden amongst its roots. It was a narrow crevice, pulsating with a faint, inviting warmth. Hesitantly, Lyra knelt and peered inside. The tunnel was dark, but the faint warmth drew her in. She squeezed through the opening, feeling the rough, ancient bark against her skin. The passage sloped downwards, narrower than she expected, forcing her to crawl. It smelled of damp earth, rich loam, and something else, old parchment and dried herbs. The tunnel twisted and turned, and Lyra felt as if she were descending into the very heart of the world. The whispering here was a chorus of echoes, the voices of countless stories told and untold, murmuring just beyond the edge of her hearing. She was not afraid, only filled with an eager anticipation. The moon singer had chosen her. The whispering guided her, and now the sacred word of balance had revealed itself. Finally, the tunnel opened into a vast, cavernous space. It was not dark, but filled with a soft, diffused light that seemed to emanate from the very air itself. The cavern walls were not rough stone, but shimmering, translucent crystal, through which she could see faint, swirling patterns of light and shadow, like distant galaxies. In the center of the cavern, perched on a pedestal of luminous moss, sat a creature unlike any she had ever imagined. It was small, no bigger than a badger, but its form was utterly unique. Its body was covered in iridescent feathers that shifted through all the colors of the rainbow with every tiny movement. It had no discernible mouth, but its eyes, large and luminous, were like pools of ancient wisdom, reflecting the swirling patterns in the crystal walls. From its back emerged not wings, but a delicate, almost transparent fan of what looked like solidified starlight, constantly unfurling and refolding. This was the keeper of stories. As Lyra approached, the creature tilted its head, its luminous eyes fixed on her. She felt no fear, only a profound sense of peace. The whispering here was a gentle, harmonious hum, as if all the stories of the world were breathing in unison. The keeper did not speak with a voice, but with a presence that flowed directly into Lyra's mind. "Welcome, listener. You have found the echo of balance." Lyra knelt before the keeper. The sacred word. Balance. I felt it from the chime. But the village, the moons, they are out of balance. The keeper shifted, its starlight fan rippling. Indeed. The twin moons, Solara and Lunara, once danced in perfect harmony, their light and shadow weaving the tapestry of life. Solara, the giver of warmth and growth. Lunara, the keeper of dreams and hidden depths. But a great shadow has fallen, a discord that seeks to unravel the threads of the cosmos. Lyra listened, spellbound. The keeper's thoughts were like ancient poetry, rich with imagery and profound meaning. Yet a discord feeds on silence, on absence, on the fading of what was to can't. It seeks to turn the vibrant hum of existence into a sterile void. It began subtly, as all great changes do, with a single misplaced note in the cosmic song. Lunara, the dreamweaver, began to draw too deeply, not from the wells of slumber, but from the echoes of forgotten nightmares. Solara, the life-giver, found her light slowly being absorbed, leaving her pale and weakened. Anesta, Adhewa. The mist in my village, Lyra murmured. It's the discord, isn't it? It takes the sound, the magic. Preyamansi, Antio, precisely. The mist is a symptom, an outward manifestation of the growing imbalance. It drains the life force, the very potential, from all it touches. It silences. And in that silence it grows stronger. How do I restore balance? Lyra asked, her voice filled with urgency. The moon singer, it showed me the two moons, and it chose me, the whispering led me here. The keeper's luminous eyes seemed to deepen, reflecting the swirling crystal patterns. You have taken the first step, Lyra of the whispering. You have recognized the sacred word, balance state. But balance is not merely a state, it is an active dance, a constant seeking of harmony. The next sacred word you must unravel is resonance. Resonance. Lyra repeated, trying to grasp its meaning. Resonance is the sympathetic vibration between all things. It is the understanding that every note played, every word spoken, every silent thought, sends ripples through the fabric of existence. To restore balance, you must re-establish resonance between Solara and Lunara. You must remind them of their ancient song, their shared purpose. But how can I do that? Lyra felt overwhelmed. She was just a listener, a girl from a small village. You are more than just a listener, Lyra. You are a bridge. The whispering speaks through you, and you can give voice to its unheard truths. To find resonance, you must seek the heart of Lunara. It lies hidden deep within the crystalline peaks, a place where the mountains themselves sing ancient lullabies. Only there can you find the next clue, the next sacred word, which will awaken Lunara's true purpose and begin to heal the discord. The crystalline peaks. Lyra mused, and she knew of them, distant mountains shrouded in legend, said to shimmer with internal light. No one from her village had ever dared venture so far. Its journey will be perilous, Lyra. The discord silence will try to claim you. Its whispers of doubt will attempt to sway you. But the whispering, your true guide, will always speak the truth. And you will not be alone. As the keeper finished, a soft musical chime echoed through the cavern. From a cluster of luminous moss near the keeper, a small crystalline moth, its wings like etched glass, unfurled itself. It shimmered with an inner light, its antennae twitching gently. This is Lumina. The keeper's thoughts flowed into Lyra's mind. She is a weaver of light, a creature born of the moon singer's song. She will be your companion, your guide through the shadows, and a beacon of hope when the path grows dim. Her wings carry the faint echo of Solara's warmth, a reminder of what must be restored. And shiny Nermon. Lumina fluttered towards Lyra, landing gently on her outstretched hand. Its delicate touch felt like a promise, a tiny spark of warmth in the face of the encroaching cold. Thank you, Keeper of Stories, Lyra said, bowing her head. I will seek the heart of Lunara. I will find resonance. Here, remember, listener, the Keeper's voice resonated once more. These sacred words are not just sounds, but concepts, energies. They are the building blocks of reality. To unravel them is to understand the universe. Go forth, Lyra. May the whispering guide your steps. With Lumina perched on her shoulder, a tiny beacon of crystalline light, Lyra turned and made her way back through the tunnel. As she emerged into the ancient grove, the first hints of dawn were painting the eastern sky with soft hues of violet and rose. The indigo tree still stood, its leaves glowing, and the sacred chime of balance hummed softly in the pre-dawn air. The gray mist over her village had retreated slightly, perhaps held at bay by her discovery, by the newfound resolve that pulsed within her. But the twin moons, Solara and Lunara, still hung in the fading night sky, Solara pale, and Lunara unnervingly bright. The task ahead was immense. The journey to the crystalline peaks would be long, through lands unknown, perhaps even touched by the growing discord. Lyra clutched the feeling of the sacred word, balance close to her heart, a steady rhythm against the rising tide of fear. Lumina, perched on her shoulder, pulsed with a gentle, reassuring light. As Lyra stepped out of the ancient grove and began to walk towards the rising sun, the whispering around her had changed. It was no longer a frantic chorus of anxiety, but a vast, interwoven tapestry of encouragement, of anticipation, of all the stories waiting to be told. It was the sound of the world holding its breath, waiting for her to find the next sacred word. Her path lay east, towards the distant, shimmering promise of the crystalline peaks. The sun, a nascent Solara in the waking world, cast long shadows before her, urging her onward. The world was vast, and her journey, she knew, had only just truly begun. The first days of her journey were a blur of walking and listening. The whispering was her constant companion, guiding her through ancient forests where trees communicated through root taps and leaf rustles, and across rolling plains where the grasses sang quiet songs of growth and decay. Lumina, the crystalline moth, fluttered ahead, her delicate wings leaving trails of faint light that helped Lyra navigate in the deepening twilight. The lands outside her village were far wilder than she had ever imagined. She saw creatures she had only heard of in old tales, nimble, bark-skinned sprites that tended to the forest's hidden springs, and lumbering, moss-covered giants that moved with the slow dignity of mountains. To each, the whispering revealed a story, a purpose, a place in the grand design. Lyra listened, absorbing it all, understanding more deeply how interconnected everything truly was. As she traveled east, the presence of the twin moons, Solara and Lunara, grew increasingly pronounced. During the day, Solara, though still weaker than Lyra remembered, cast a pale, golden light. But at night, Lunara dominated, a cold, silvery orb that seemed to draw all warmth from the air. The stars around Lunara often seemed to dim, as if their light was being siphoned away. The discord, Lyra realized, was not just affecting the world, but the very heavens. One evening, as Lyra and Lumina rested beneath a sprawling ancient willow, whose branches dipped into a slow-moving river, the whispering became troubled. It was a murmur of confusion, of disorientation. The river, usually a confident, bubbling presence, now felt hesitant, its flow strangely sluggish. "What is it?" whispering. Lyra asked softly, touching the cool water. The whispering revealed a subtle disquiet. The water, the very lifeblood of the land, was losing its memory. It was forgetting its journey, its source, its destination. Without its memory, it couldn't flow with purpose. Lumina, perched on Lyra's finger, pulsed with a worried glow. She pointed a delicate antenna towards the river's bank, where the usually vibrant reeds were wilting, their colors fading to a dull gray. The discord was reaching further, manifesting in new ways. "The water is losing its resonance," Lyra murmured, the keeper's words echoing in her mind. "It's forgetting its song." She closed her eyes, extending her senses into the river. She felt the individual droplets, each a tiny world, but their connection, their collective purpose, was weakening. It was as if each droplet was a forgotten note in a once grand symphony. Suddenly, a strange sensation pricked her awareness. Not a sound, but a feeling of profound silence within the whispering itself. It was as if a part of the river's song had been torn away. Following this sensation, Lyra walked along the riverbank, Lumina fluttering beside her. They soon came to a place where the river widened into a small, serene lake. In the center of the lake, half submerged, was a colossal stone, smooth and dark like an ancient sleeping creature. As Lyra approached, the whispering grew agitated. It spoke of a great forgetting, a powerful silence emanating from the stone. The air around it felt strangely heavy, devoid of the usual sounds of nature. "What is this place?" Lyra asked, her voice hushed. Lumina flew in a small circle above the stone, her light dimming slightly as if struggling against an unseen force. The whispering conveyed a sense of ancient pain, of a great burden. Lyra reached out, her fingers brushing the surface of the water. It was strangely still, almost oily, despite the gentle breeze. She felt a profound sadness radiating from the stone. It was not malicious, but weary, burdened by a deep, unnatural silence. As she listened, she heard it, not with her ears, but with her listener's heart, a faint, almost imperceptible hum coming from the stone. It was a single struggling note, trying to break through a suffocating shroud of silence. It was a note of memory. The keeper had spoken of resonance, of awakening Lunara's true purpose. Perhaps this stone held a fragment of that truth. This wasn't the heart of Lunara, but it felt connected, a symptom of the same cosmic illness. Lyra knew she couldn't leave it. The river, the very memory of the land, depended on it. She sat down at the edge of the lake, closing her eyes, and focused her entire being on that struggling note of memory. She reached out with the whispering, not to take, but to offer. She shared the sacred word balance with the stone, letting its resonant frequency ripple from her heart into the water, towards the silent stone. She pictured the moon singer, its wings beating a rhythm of harmony. She pictured Solara and Lunara dancing, their lights intertwined. She projected the feeling of resonance, of connection, of shared purpose towards the stone. Minutes stretched into an hour. The air grew colder, and Lyra felt a drain on her own energy, as if the silence was trying to absorb her efforts. Lumina settled on her head, her light flickering but refusing to extinguish. Then, slowly, subtly, the struggling hum from the stone began to strengthen. It was still faint, but it gained a tiny bit of warmth, a sliver of clarity. It was like a single forgotten melody trying to remember its chorus. Lyra continued, focusing all her will, all her connection to the whispering, on bolstering that single note. She didn't know what the stone was or why it held the river's memory, but she knew it needed to remember its song. Finally, with a gentle, almost imperceptible tremor, the stone pulsed. A faint ethereal glow, like moonlight on mist, rose from its surface. It was not a grand display of magic, but a quiet, profound awakening. And then, the sound. A soft, mournful note, like a cello string plucked by a dream, emanated from the stone. It was the sound of memory. It was the sacred word, memory, not spoken, but sung by the stone itself. As the note resonated, the river seemed to sigh. Its sluggish flow quickened, and the wilting reeds along the bank regained a faint blush of green. The silence around the stone receded, replaced by the gentle lapping of water and the rustle of leaves in the willow above. The whispering surged with gratitude, a chorus of happy murmurs from the revitalized river. The stone, now glowing with a steady inner luminescence, seemed to be breathing again, its burden lightened. From the stone, Lyra received a new understanding, a new fragment of the cosmic puzzle. The discord wasn't just silencing, it was erasing. It sought to sever the threads of memory, for without memory, there could be no past, no future, only an eternal silent present. And without memory, there could be no resonance. To find resonance, the stone's silent message flowed into her mind. You must first mend the threads of memory. For Lunara, the weaver of dreams, draws her true strength from the deepest, most ancient memories of the world. Lyra stood, feeling the renewed flow of the river, the gentle hum of the stone. She had not found the heart of Lunara yet, but she had taken a step closer. She had learned the sacred word, memory. This journey was not just about finding words, but understanding them, feeling them, and using them to heal. With Lumina now glowing with renewed vigor, Lyra continued her journey towards the crystalline peaks. The sun was fully risen now, casting a golden path before her. The river, revitalized, sang a stronger song as it flowed alongside her. The world, though still scarred by the discord, felt a little brighter, a little more hopeful. The crystalline peaks, once a distant haze on the horizon, slowly grew into magnificent glittering towers that pierced the sky. They were not dull rock, but mountains of sheer, translucent crystal, catching the light of Solara by day and Lunara by night, scattering it into 1,000 sparkling rainbows. As Lyra drew closer, the air grew crisp and cool, carrying the scent of mineral and ozone. The whispering here was different again. It was a symphony of echoes, of light reflecting and refracting, of subtle vibrations that made the very air hum. It was the sound of crystal growth, of geological time, of frozen light. The entrance to the peaks was a narrow pass, flanked by towering crystalline cliffs that seemed to pulse with an internal luminescence. Lumina, her wings now shimmering with a vibrant, almost urgent light, guided Lyra deeper into the pass. The path wound upwards, becoming steeper and more treacherous. Lyra's boots crunched on crystalline shards that sparkled like scattered diamonds. She passed through tunnels of glowing ice, where ancient frost patterns adorned the walls like intricate tapestries. The silence here was profound, broken only by the occasional distant ping of crystal expanding or contracting. But this silence was different from the Discord's emptiness. This was a natural silence, a stillness filled with the potential of sound waiting to be awakened. As they ascended, Lyra noticed strange formations in the crystal walls, what looked like frozen echoes of sound. Intricate patterns, like ripples in water, were preserved in the clear rock. Each unique, each telling a silent story. The whispering here was full of these trapped sounds, these crystalline memories. "This is what the Keeper meant," Lyra whispered to Lumina. "The mountains sing ancient lullabies. These are their songs, frozen in time." Lumina chirped softly, her light dancing across the crystal patterns. They reached a vast open cavern high in the peaks. The ceiling was a dome of pure, clear crystal, through which the twin moons, Solara and Lunara, were visible, framed by a scattering of brilliant stars. The light of Lunara, though still cold, was amplified by the crystal, casting the cavern in an ethereal, silvery glow. In the center of the cavern stood a colossal crystal formation, like a natural cathedral spire, reaching almost to the ceiling. It hummed with a deep, resonant frequency that Lyra felt in her bones. This was it. This was the heart of Lunara. As Lyra approached the crystal spire, she saw that it was not solid, but interwoven with countless delicate crystalline filaments, like the strings of a cosmic harp-tardart. And upon these filaments, like dewdrops, were suspended tiny luminous orbs of light. Each orb pulsed with a faint inner glow, and Lyra, listening with all her being, heard their silent song. These were the dreams. Not just the dreams of people, but the dreams of forests, of rivers, of mountains, of stars. The hopes, the aspirations, the forgotten wishes, the deepest memories of the world, all gathered here, woven into the heart of Lunara. But many of the orbs were dim, their light fading. Some were completely dark, like extinguished stars. The discord was reaching even here, silencing the dreams, severing the connections. As Lyra reached out to touch a vibrant, pulsing orb, a new presence made itself known. It was not a physical being, but a voice that resonated directly in her mind, like the Keeper, but colder, more ancient, and deeply weary. "Who dares disturb the slumber of the silent heart?" The voice echoed, not angry but profoundly sad. Lyra hesitated, her hand hovering over the crystalline filaments. "I am Lyra, the listener. I have come to help. The twin moons are out of balance. The discord is silencing the world, draining its memory, its dreams." "The discord?" "Yes," the voice sighed, a sound like wind whistling through ice. "It has been whispering to me for an age, telling me to draw deeper, to forget the delicate dance of light and shadow, to embrace the profound quiet of true stillness." "Ninya, Antasene, Antaimona Nwashikean." Lyra realized this was a fragment of Lunara herself, or perhaps the collective consciousness of the heart. "But true stillness isn't empty silence," Lyra countered, her voice firm. "It's the potential for all sound. The discord promises quiet, but it delivers oblivion. It wants to sever your connection to Solara, to the world's memories and dreams." "Me, connection. It feels so distant." "Solara's light seems to fade, her warmth a memory. The dreams, they are so fragile, so easily forgotten. The silence, it is so tempting, so peaceful. Why no? Hey, but the dreams are precious." Lyra insisted, her heart aching for the ancient entity. "They are the world's hopes, its future. And the memories, they are its past, its foundation. Without them, there is no resonance, no balance. The discord is poisoning you, Lunara, making you forget your true purpose." She remembered the sacred word memory from the stone. Memory. she projected into the heart of Lunara. Remember your ancient song. Remember your dance with Solara. Remember the warmth you once shared, the life you nurtured. Nona. As Lyra focused, Lumina flew off her shoulder and began to dart amongst the crystalline filaments, her tiny light pulsing like a heartbeat, gently touching the fading dream orbs. With each touch, a faint spark of light would return, a tiny memory reawakened. Lyra reached out and placed both hands on the central crystal spire. She closed her eyes, and through her, the whispering flowed. It was no longer just the sounds of the world, but the echoes of its deepest memories, its most vibrant dreams. She poured the sacred word balances into the spire, followed by memory, allowing their frequencies to mingle and resonate within the heart of Lunara. She showed Lunara the vision of the moon singer, its wings beating the rhythm of perfect harmony. She showed her the image of Solara, not as a fading light, but as a vibrant, life-giving force, yearning for her twin. She projected the feeling of resonance, the sympathetic vibration between all things, the joy of shared purpose. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the crystal spire began to hum more vibrantly. The fading dream orbs, touched by Lumina's light and Lyra's whispered resonance, began to glow with renewed vigor. The voice in Lyra's mind, Lunara's voice, shifted. It was still ancient, but no longer merely weary. A new note, a fragile spark of recognition, entered its tone. Resonance, the voice murmured, a sound like 1,000 tiny bells chiming. Yes. I remember. The dance. The song. The weaving of dreams with the warmth of life. Or tall. The crystal spire pulsed with a strong, clear light that filled the cavern. The light was no longer just silver, but shimmered with delicate hues of rose and gold, reflecting Solara's warmth. And as the light intensified, Lyra felt a profound surge of energy course through her. The next sacred word, resonance, revealed itself not as a sound or a feeling, but as a profound connection. It was the feeling of everything being linked, of every note contributing to a greater symphony. It was the understanding that even the smallest dream, the faintest memory, could send ripples of healing through the cosmos. As Lyra stood there, bathed in the resonant light of the heart of Lunara, she felt her own spirit expand. She was not just a listener, she was a conduit, a weaver of the world's forgotten songs. Lumina, perched on a now brightly glowing dream orb, pulsed with triumphant joy. But the task was not complete. The discord still lingered, its silent tendrils still reaching. The balance was not yet fully restored. Lyra knew this was just the beginning of Lunara's awakening, a fragile spark that needed to be nurtured. The voice of Lunara, now clearer and stronger, flowed into her mind. You have awakened a part of me, listener. You have helped me remember resonance. But the discord is vast. It has woven its silence into the very fabric of the cosmos. To fully restore the dance, you must find the source of the discord. You must seek the weaver of silence. I don't know. Lyra opened her eyes, gazing at the awakened heart of Lunara, now a beacon of shimmering interconnected light. The twin moons, visible through the crystal dome, seemed to pulse in a more harmonious rhythm. Solara gaining a touch of her former warmth, Lunara shedding some of her cold, hungry glow. The weaver of silence? Lyra asked, her voice echoing in the now vibrant cavern. Yes. It dwells in the deepest shadow, where even the whispering struggles to reach. It believes silence is the ultimate truth. To unravel its deception, you must find the sacred word harmony. Only then can the full song of the twin moons be restored. In the scene, Lyra felt a thrill of both apprehension and determination. The path was growing darker, the stakes higher. But she had Lumina, the whispering, and the sacred words of balance, memory, and resonance. She was Lyra, the listener, and her journey was far from over. The weaver of silence, and the final sacred word, harmony, awaited her. Lyra pressed on, the silence growing so profound it felt like a heavy cloak muffling her very thoughts. Luminous glow fought valiantly against the encroaching void, its light seeming to be absorbed rather than reflected. At last, she stood before it, not a creature but a vast shimmering absence, A space where sound simply wasn't, stretching like an endless velvet curtain. This was the weaver of silence. "Balance," Lyra whispered, her voice a fragile spark in the immense quiet. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor rippled through the velvet void. "Memory," she breathed, recalling every lost note, every forgotten melody. Another ripple, a slight wavering in the oppressive stillness. "Resonance," she declared, feeling the echoes of the world's natural hum deep within her bones. The silence pulsed, a vast, silent heartbeat. Then Ira closed her eyes, not to block the dark, but to listen to the truth inside. She felt the gentle pull of the twin moons, the quiet hum of the stars, the soft murmur of the sleeping world. She understood. Harmony wasn't just a word to find. It was the natural state of everything, waiting to be remembered. Taking a deep, steadying breath, Lyra opened her heart and sang. Not a loud, defiant cry, but a soft, pure note that started within her and blossomed outward, carrying all the truth of balance, memory, and resonance. "Harmony," she whispered, and the sound wasn't just spoken, it unfurled. The velvet curtain of silence didn't shatter, it simply began to unravel, like threads dissolving into moonlight. A faint, sweet melody, almost forgotten, began to drift on the air. It was the first note of the twin moon's song, clear and true. It grew, joined by others, weaving a tapestry of sound that filled the newly open space. The world sighed, a collective breath of relief. Lumina shone brightly, no longer fighting, but dancing in the restored light. Lyra, the listener, finally heard the full glorious song, a lullaby of cosmic proportion, gently guiding all things to peaceful sleep. Her journey was done, and the night was truly whole.